Welcome, everybody, to this webinar that we're hosting today. We are super, super excited to bring you Know Your Beef. So we have Craig Cameron with us today from Peony Farms. And I just want to share, I first met Craig. Craig, you and I met not too many months ago at the 2025 Canadian Holistic Nutrition Conference. So you were there representing your farm, and you had samples of beef frozen in an insulated bag, waiting for Luca and I just to share your product with us. And Luca was there hosting, being the MC for the event, but of course she's living in the Netherlands right now. So she said to me, Tracy, I can't take the beef, I'm getting on a flight. So you just take the whole bag. So I was very, very lucky to get to take this sample home. And so I should probably preface this with my history with beef, because I have never tolerated beef well. And I only figured this out recently as I sort of discovered I have mast cell activation syndrome, and histamine is an issue for me. And what I discovered was that even if I was taking enzymes to help with histamine breakdown, when I ate beef, I would get symptoms. And so for me, I don't know why beef shows up a little bit differently in my body than other foods do, but I'd have a steak or ground beef, whatever it was, for dinner. At night, I would wake up and I'd have heart palpitations. And so it took me a while to figure out, oh, it's the beef. And if I take extra enzymes, I can actually tolerate the beef. But I also had this incredible light bulb moment, because I actually have memories all throughout childhood of waking up in the middle of the night with heart palpitations. And suddenly it was like, wow, this has just been going on my whole life. So given my history with beef, I now had this beautiful sample from Craig, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try this beef. Obviously, sampling it with a little bit of trepidation, not feeling super safe, but I cooked up your beef. So from frozen, I think the first thing I did was probably a roast, put it right into the Instant Pot. And no enzymes, right? I was like, if I'm going to try this, I'm doing it just flat out, no enzymes. And it was brilliant, no issues at all. And so after we finished up your sample, I ordered one of your packages, and it has just been game changing for me to be able to eat beef and have it feel safe in my body. And it is such a deeply nourishing food. So this has just been such a big game changer for me that I am overwhelmingly excited to be able to share what you do with our audience today. So that's the introduction. That's my story. But we want to change things over, obviously, Craig, to your story. So Luke is going to jump in now and ask you a few questions to share, hopefully share a bit about your story with the audience.
Yeah. So, hi, everybody. I'm Lucas Simmons. My colleague Tracy Reed and I are the two behind Histamine Haven, and we're really glad to have everybody joining us today. Whether you're here live or you are joining us for the replay or somewhere down the line in the future, we're really glad you're here. Our goal today is to really clarify, know your beef. You're going to soon understand what is regenerative agriculture, why it's important, and what it takes to reduce histamine in your beef products. And we've got farmer Craig Cameron, who's here at Peony Farms. Peony Farms is a brilliant family-owned farms that is located just outside Lacombe in the lovely province of Alberta in Canada. So we're going to introduce Craig. Craig Cameron, thanks for coming today and saying yes to coming this morning. Nice to see you. Me. Oh, our pleasure. Give us a lowdown. How are things in your neck of the woods this morning?
Oh, things are going good. It's nice out. Yeah.
Good. It's a good day. We'll take it. We'll take it. So, I want to hear a little bit about your story. I know you are not the first generation to be farming your farm. Tell us a little bit about Peony Farms and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, so Peony Farms was started by my father-in-law. Um, and he grew up on a farm just across the road, so he hasn't moved very far. But I've also been farming for as long as I can remember. I grew up on a farm by Millet, Alberta. And so then when me and my wife moved down here to join her parents, we were a conventional farm, mixed beef and grain. And then when our daughter was born, she had complications that led to some severe disabilities and health challenges. And so that idea of bringing her home after a month in the NICU was kind of pretty overwhelming. And like, how do we take care of this little person with so many needs? And so then we're kind of researching and talking to other parents. And one of the things that my wife noticed was that a lot of the parents found that we were talking to found that food really impacted outcomes for these kids.
Hmm.
So then we got digging into, well, what is the best food for our daughter to get to give her these better outcomes? And so my wife ended up going and getting grass finished beef from another rancher and bringing it back. And it was kind of like, oh, that's a little frustrating. Like, why aren't you going to eat like our beef that we're raising? And it was grain finished. And so I kind of started digging into, well, like, is grass finished actually better? And how do we produce that best type of beef for our daughter and for our customers? And that's what's kind of led us on this journey.
That's quite the story. And often, I think so many of us sometimes find our story or our way through when there's small children in the picture and they have different needs, right? I know it certainly has spearheaded a lot of my own story through things. Um, I know. So the shifting over before well, I suppose we should maybe clarify when we're saying regenerative agriculture. Is this organic? Is it just another word for organic? Is it permaculture? What exactly is there like industry standard? Is there anybody like you have to pass all of these tests to be able to get that name? What does it mean and how do you get there?
Yeah, so it's quite a broad category, as is organic, as is conventional. There's a lot of different people doing different things that fall under that category. And so for me, regenerative agriculture is really about promoting health at all levels of our food production. So from the soil to the plants to the animals, all the way to the people eating the beef. And I really like, there's one guy in the States, John Kemp, that talks about it's about regenerating relationships too, about relationships between customers and farmers. And so just really about bringing health back into the whole picture is what it is for me. And lots of different people will have different definitions of it. And so really getting to know who's producing your food and what their definition of regenerative is really important, I think.
What are some of those big markers that would tell, like that you consider, well, we're regenerative agriculture because we do this, this, this. What is specific to Peony Farms?
Yeah, so I guess I could talk a little bit about our journey into regenerative, like some of the specifics, and that might help a bit. So our first thing we did was we just started testing, like testing our plants, seeing where we were, like are the things that we were doing in conventional act, like where were they leading to on a plant health nutrition thing by doing like SAP testing. Um, we did some like liver samples from our animals to see where their nutrient profiles were, some of that type of thing. And so we kind of came up with probably the most important thing for us in regenerative production is diversity, diversity of plants in the field. Um, and so that has really been the number one factor in the health of our soil and our plants, our animals, and our beef. We also do things like minimal disturbance. And if we are doing disturbance, we're trying to do it at specific times where it's going to be a benefit rather than a hindrance to the health of our soils. And then on a nutrition standpoint for our soils and plants, and you'll hear me talk a lot about soils and plants because that's the most important part of healthy beef in the end. So we'll talk a bit about beef, but all this stuff at the beginning is quite important. So as far as nutrition for soils, we moved from like a nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium program, which is really where conventional agriculture is focused, to really focusing on calcium and micronutrients to build some of those other pieces of health as well. So
That's huge. Tell me a little bit more about the NPK, like the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and calcium, like, because, I think of it, so I'm a small time gardener where when you, like, there's the Miracle Grow, right? Just as an example, and like conventional stuff, sure. But I did a master's gardener degree at one point. Like, you've got the three numbers mean different things, and some will, like, you want nitrogen high for the development. I can't remember. There's one for roots, one for above ground, one below ground. Like, what's the difference between nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus versus calcium? Like, what's different about that?
yeah, so probably the biggest one is nitrogen. In plants, high nitrates will result in low sugars in the plant, which will lead to higher impacts by pathogenic fungus, by insects, and it also reduces the amount of micronutrients and stuff that the plant is taking up. So when we switched to regenerative, we slowly, over I think about 3 years, moved to a zero nitrogen fertilizer system where all of our nitrogen is coming from legumes in our mixes, or what they're finding out now is there's a process called the rhizophagy cycle in plants, where plants will actually consume whole microbes and start building nitrogen inside their own cells without even having to be legumes. So those two processes are where we get 100% of our nitrogen from now, and that's mostly in ammonium form, not nitrate form. So then our plants are able to produce more sugars and stay healthier. And then focusing on calcium, when we're looking at, if you think of an old well, like that has a crank and a and a rope and a bucket on it, the way that I've heard some scientists talk about it is that rope is like the calcium. It's pulling up all these other micronutrients and bringing them up into the plant and making them available for the animals that are grazing them later. So,
Okay, sorry, I have to intervene. I'm going to
yeah.
totally geek out here because I'm sure this is through the calcium ion channel. And like this is a cellular channel. It actually impacts mast cells, which is why I'm just like, oh my God, this is so
Yeah.
exciting. Right?
So
Like
many levels.
this is where everything is connected, right? It's because this is happening in the human body as well. So it's like it's from the soil to the plant to the animals. Like, yeah, sorry, it's so exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And,
really
and,
cool.
and it's really interesting because like our soils, not all soils, but like our soils on our farm are naturally super high in calcium. And our process has been more about trying to make that calcium available rather than adding calcium. So
Is
that's been,
that specific to Alberta soil, you mean?
it can be across Alberta, it can be different levels, but like in our specific area, we have really high calcium levels.
So you're in a good spot.
Yeah, when we can make it available.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like when it works and when the systems work. How hard was it to change your farm from conventional to regenerative? And I know because it's multi-generational farm too. How was that received? And you could speak to that as well.
Yeah, so at the beginning it was a little difficult. Like me and my wife, we kind of started trying a few things and getting a little bit of pushback, and but we ended up. It was really funny. We my father-in-law, he'll take bulls to the States. We sell some breeding stock as well, and he took a load of bulls to the States one time. We sent him along with our beef nutritionist, gave us the book Dirt to Soil by Gabe Brown. And we sent it with him on this trip. And when he came back, he's like, "Oh, I just need another old guy to tell me I was doing it wrong."
Well, that happens.
And then ever since then, he's been almost as excited or more excited than we are about this whole thing. So it's been super fun.
That's awesome because I think, yeah, I love the idea that, I think we have to support youth and honor their voices. We also need to support elders and honor their wisdom and the what they have recognized and noticed and what they've worked for, but that both have a place at the table. And I was curious to see how did that shift over for you guys. Okay, so from the point of view of holistic nutrition, because of course, Tracy and I work in nutrition, and a lot of what we do with clients is to help reduce whatever it is that's driving their particular symptoms.
Mhm.
And when we're talking about that, we're often talking about a couple of different key nutrients that I know that I'm hoping we can focus on today for you, with the benefits of choosing a regenerative agricultural product versus a conventionally. And when we're saying conventionally, like, can I be clear? This is what you would buy at the grocery store that would not be organic. It would not be from a biodynamic farm. It would not be from a regenerative agriculture farm. It would be like typically, if we're talking about meat from an animal that was finished in a feedlot, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So in terms of some of the nutrients, I'll lead you if you don't hit all the ones I want. So let's see.
Mhm.
I'm just kidding. But let's start first with, so there's omega-3 and omega-6. Those are they're called essential fatty acids because they are essential that we get them from the foods that we eat because we need them for different processes in the body. And we need omega-3 and omega-6 in a ratio of 2 omega-6 for every 1 omega-3. When they are in that right ratio, we can turn down inflammation in the body. We can reduce inflammation in the body. And inflammation is one of the things that can be driving some histamine release in the body, or in some cases also contributing to mast cell activation. So can you speak to the omega-6 and omega-3 ratio in the beef that you produce?
Yeah, you bet. So, one of the things we did as we were making this transition is we sent beef samples off to Utah State University, Dr. Van Vliet's lab, for the Bionutrient Food Association beef study that they were doing. And so we were just kind of on the beginnings of switching to this forage finishing. And so we sent samples that were grain finished and samples that were forage finished from our farm, exact same forage mix that we developed through our becoming regenerative. The only difference was the grain in there. And what we saw was on the grain finished beef, we were at about 11.6 to 1 ratio of 6 to 3. And on the forage finished beef, so only difference, grain, no grain, we were at a 3.6
to 1.
Yeah.
So you went from 11 something to 3 something.
Yeah.
So 11 to 1 to 3 to 1. So you were getting closer. So the trick to know here is the closer you can get to 2 omega-6s for every 1 omega-3, the better you are at turning off inflammation. The more off you are, the more you actually drive inflammation as well. It's kind of a two-edged sword.
And then when we retested again this year, we're down to a 2.3 to 1.
Shut the front door.
Yeah.
So you're essentially saying grass-fed, grass-finished, to be clear.
Yeah.
In a regenerative farm, the beef and other meats as well. I know this applies to not just beef, but for those meats, they are anti-inflammatory then. Can we say that?
Yeah. And so like saying grass finished is really good, but then the diversity of forages also will play into the omega-6 and 3 ratios as well.
So like tell me, what's grass and forage? What's the difference between the two then?
So a forage mix, what we're doing is we have about 14 different species of plants that are in there, and each one's playing a different role in the nutrition of the beef. So take like say like a sweet clover in there, that'll give you a ton of vitamin A, or lots of the legumes will be higher in your omega-3s. So that's where if you were just feeding a straight grass, you might not get the same omega-3 levels as forage that's got some legumes mixed into it.
So there's a whole lot of thinking going on behind the scenes to try to tweak things until the end product is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So
amazing.
for farmers that are really interested in the health aspect, will kind of be looking for certain characteristics. Other farmers that are looking for, say, low cost, they're doing regenerative for being low cost. They're going to look at different aspects. But yeah, we can tweak the system to make really good things happen, which is amazing.
How long did it take you to figure out what's the right ratio?
I don't think we're ever going to stop tweaking it. So
Well, it's a living thing. And I'm sure
yeah.
too that I can just imagine as well, depending on what the health of the soil is, you'll also have different nutrient compound, like a different nutrient profile, if you will, of some of these plants as well. You know, in a year where there was a lot of rain and the microbiome of the soil would be different because the microbiome of the soil has such a key piece to play in the bioavailability of some of these nutrients that like on a very wet year it'll be different. You'll have to play with it a little bit more. How quick do you have to pivot on some of those things?
So we kind of did a lot of changes at the beginning, and now it's mostly just like little tweaks here and there and trying to tune it in a little bit more. And it's super fascinating, like from year to year, seeing if you plant virtually the same mix, it can look totally different, like you said, just based on moisture, based on what's going on in the soil, based on a whole number of factors. So
That's amazing. Okay, some of the other nutrients. I know regenerative agriculture product will have a better supply of some of those minerals as well. Is that into the same reason behind the variety and the foraging? Can you speak to that a little bit
So
more?
the variety of forages has an impact on what minerals are available, as well as like we were talking about with the calcium, like how your functioning calcium is in the soil will allow more of those key micronutrients to get brought into the plant, especially things like zinc and copper. Um, and I had some other thought and it just left. So
That's okay. May it come back, may it come back. What
yeah.
about B vitamins? Do you have story or any piece to add about B vitamins and the methylated versions of B vitamins, that there's a better complement of them from regenerative agriculture versus something that might be conventionally raised?
Yeah, so we saw in our testing higher levels of B vitamins, and a lot of that is related to the health of the microbes in the animal's gut and the lack of inflammation and oxidative stress in the animal.
Funny that you are what you eat eats. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And so the the other part again is having protein plants in those forage blends provide key components to building those B vitamins that then are utilized by those microbes in the rumen to make the B vitamins. So having that mix of plants again, so that they have all the pieces they need to build those as well as the microbial populations. Another neat thing, I was talking to a researcher a couple months ago, and she was saying they never used to think that B vitamins could be made in the soil, but they found in some super healthy microbial active soils, they're starting to see some B vitamins being made there as well. So that is super fascinating.
That's so amazing. And so, just for anybody who's joining us today, the B vitamins are one of the key ingredients we need for the clearing out of spent histamine, for the breaking down of that histamine as well. So, and in animal forms, when you're consuming animal products, you're consuming versions of those B vitamins that will be already methylated. And that's where the key piece is, especially for B9 and B12. We need them in the methylated form. Now, in a body that is struggling and has some biochemistry that might be struggling somewhere, histamine and mast cell activation will certainly fall under that category. In some of those bodies, we may struggle with taking a plant version of B9, for example, and turning it into the methylated form. So when you're consuming the beef from those animals on regenerative agriculture practices, now you're, well, and you will as well from the conventional stuff, but you will have a better complement of some of those already methylated B vitamins in order to better rev up that capacity of breaking down and moving some of that spent histamine out. So it just helps on so many levels. I don't like you can't lose is
Yeah.
kind of what you're saying. Okay, I love that.
Pretty amazing. Yeah,
Okay, so
and then if you want like the supercharged version, then you start looking at things like liver and
oh
that
yeah,
whole.
how does it impact the organ meats? Because the organ meats are somewhere where you get that deep nutrition of some of those harder to find nutrients that can be like the nutrient deficiencies that drive some of our symptoms. Some of those missing nutrients, harder to find, are often found in organ meats, and organ meats tend to be most of them tend to be higher in histamine than some of the other cuts of the animal. Can you speak to a little bit of that?
Yeah, like we haven't tested our organ meats for anything specific, but we do have a lot of people using them and seeing benefits from it, and from a lot of the research, seeing like it's basically the multivitamins of nature kind of thing. So
Yeah, yeah. And it's just how humans actually have functioned for millennia until we started messing with the thing. Okay, I have one last question. From the
yeah.
point of view of a farmer, what are the benefits to you of regenerative agriculture? I know, like, we've just talked about the nutrients, we've just talked about the better complement of things, but what do you see from your point of view? What is it that we're not seeing that you see as a farmer?
Mhm. Yeah, so benefits for us, firstly, because we're trying to feed our family, like the health benefits of it is super amazing. Then we see decreased costs, not having to use nitrogen fertilizer, adding more like perennials into the mix that regrow every year, as we don't have those seed costs. Uh, we see healthier animals. We've almost very little disease or issues like that with our animals now. Um, we don't have to vaccinate a bunch of those things that we used to do to try and help the animals stay healthy. Um, and the reproduction of the animals has been better as well. So healthier animals, better reproduction.
Yeah,
Um,
it's such a great report card on how
yeah,
your what do I call like the collection of animals that you have, like your herd. Yeah, it's a really good indication of the herd is how well they can have babies.
yeah, yeah. So
That's amazing.
it's super fascinating seeing all the different pieces, and I really enjoy digging into it and just yeah, seeing what's happening, and it's
You're a scientist on the ground. Like
yeah.
you are like both feet in, it sounds like. Yeah, I
Well,
love it.
I have a bachelor's degree in environmental chemistry, so that helps with all of that.
Yeah. Well,
So
and you're seeing it in action, right? You're not in the lab testing things. Your lab is outside and it's the cows. Like, what is it, Joel Salatin, who says, "Well, you have to let the cow express its cowness." Well,
yeah.
it totally sounds like that's exactly what you guys are doing. Okay, I have one last question. What are some questions that people could ask their farmer to find out if the products they are producing are in a system of regenerative agriculture? Can you take us through some of those?
Yeah, so we've got a checklist that we're going to give out at the end, right? So
Do you want
that's
me to
going to
share?
kind
Do
of what's that? Sure.
you want me to share? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk a bit about the histamines of Tracy, I think you said, but like the key ones are your cattle fed any grain? Um, the how many different species of plants are the cattle are eating. So the more the better. Like in a single forage mix, we'll have like 14 species. I think total we've got over 40 different species on the farm in different mixes and stuff. So the more different species, the more chance you're going to have all those different pieces from your omegas to your B vitamins to things like antioxidant phytochemicals, some of those types of things. And then if you want to get into the nitty gritty, asking like about what they're doing about calcium, micronutrients in the soil, are they using a lot of nitrogen fertilizer, um, and some of those types of things. So
You don't want nitrogen fertilizer used readily, is that correct?
correct, yeah, yeah. The less amount of nitrogen fertilizer and the more they're looking at calcium and micronutrients, the better the mineral should be in the beef.
Would it be safe to say that if a producer, if a farmer, a cattle rancher is producing in a regenerative agriculture form, they would actually tell you that they are like it's a piece that they really work on and it's a piece of pride essentially about what their product is?
Yeah, and I mean, even the simplest question you could ask them is like, what are you doing to support human health, or what are you doing to support the health of your soils, right? And then that's wide open for them to talk about whatever they're doing that is going that way. And I think 99% of the people I know that are in this would be happy to share and say what's going on. So
And they'll geek out if you want.
yeah,
So it's okay to ask questions. Okay, good.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's it for my questions. I'll pass over to my colleague Tracy. She's got some questions coming up on the histamine thing because I know those attending today's talk are also curious to know about that.
Mhm.
Yes. And so before I jump into my questions, you guys were talking about the omega 3s. And I think what's really interesting is omega 3s are important from a histamine perspective. They stabilize mast cells, and mast cells release histamine. So if you stabilize those mast cells, that's always awesome. And everybody always only talks about fish as a good source of omega 3s. And I want to be really clear, like plant sources of omega 3s, our body can't utilize those as they are. They have to be converted, right? So animal sources are super important. So knowing that beef potentially, again, depending on how it's raised and all of these like amazing factors that we've been discussing, it has the possibility also to be this incredible omega-3 source. So I think people need to understand, right? It's not just about fish. Like I can eat beef and get this as well. And especially, so if we look at, North America, so Canada and the States, like huge continent, there's not a lot of people that have access to fresh fish, right? Like we are mostly a prairie
Mhm.
continent. So let's, tie into that resource and utilize it.
Yeah.
Okay, so um, I want to start this sort of next section of our conversation, kind of looking at regeneratively raised meat and
Mhm.
how some people will feel better. Like, and you sort of shared your family story, right? Like some people will do better. And from obviously this whole nutrient perspective and like everything, inflammation, right? These healthier cows, a lot of people feel much better going from conventionally raised, whether that's completely grain fed or grain finished, to regenerative, right? They'll feel much better. But as I shared, that really wasn't the case for me. I have been eating regeneratively raised animal products for quite a number of years now, but beef was still really, really problematic for me. And this kind of brings us to this whole histamine conversation. So, can you discuss aging of
Mhm.
beef and why it is done?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's I'll guess I'll start with a little bit of a story. One of our customers, she has a severe histamine issue, and so I was talking with her the one time about kind of what she's experienced, and she found us through Flat Cap Butchers in Calgary, which does what's called fresh meat. So they don't do any frozen meat, and so they buy animals from us. They're from the time they get from our butcher to them, it's been about a week, and then probably another 4 days on his shelf before they're sold. And so this lady was saying that when she switched to buying our frozen stuff, which would be less than a week from slaughter to being frozen in cuts, she could tell a difference from that to what it was on the counter at the butcher. And so that's just probably 4 to 6 days difference in how long that beef was not frozen.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so, yeah,
I was just going to say it's
go ahead.
interesting you share that because we do have people in our community that will say, like, I found a butcher who will age the beef for just like 9 or 10 days, right? They're trying to reduce that aging time. And yeah, so this is like just the difference between a little, what would be really considered the very low. And I'm not even sure if aging is once you've once you've butchered the meat, will it still go through like the aging process?
Yeah. So the most common form of aging is right after slaughter, they'll just hang the carcass of the animal in a cooler. And for most people that I know in smaller meat beef operations, they're hanging that carcass for anywhere from 14 to 21 days is what they're targeting. And the reason they do that is they're trying to get the meat to be as tender as possible because in most breeds of cattle, there's a lot of variability in tenderness. And so we hear about things like marbling, which is super popular as a reason for choosing one beef over another. And some of the research I read says that marbling really is only about a 10% indicator of tenderness. And so that's where all this aging process and stuff is them trying to get the extra tenderness in the meat. And so the issue with that again is the longer it hangs, the more histamines it gets in it. And there is I've seen some research saying that there could be some vitamin breakdown of like some of the more volatile vitamins. But it seems to be kind of mixed on the research
Okay.
front, whether that's accurate or not. But there definitely is an increase in histamines. The other forms of aging are some places will just they'll cut it right away and they'll leave it in packages, sealed packages that are not frozen, whether that's in transport or sitting on the shelf at whatever the retailer is. And then that's a different form of aging called wet aging, but it has the same kind of thing where it's to try and increase tenderness from some of the muscle breakdown. Um, and then yeah, is the same purpose of that. And so what we have done so that we don't have to hang our animals is we use a breed of cattle called Piedmontese. And so we have a natural tenderness gene in the cattle that allows the meat to be tender without having to do any of these aging processes. So we had that before we got into this histamine stuff, but we found that a lot of well, not a lot at that point. Now it's a lot of customers, but at that point, some of our customers were like, we can't eat any beef except yours. And so um, then when we heard Luca, it was 2 years ago at the Holistic Nutrition Conference talking about histamines, we're like, oh, maybe that's what it is.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so most farmers are obviously using different breeds of cows. And because of that variation in tenderness, they need to age because everybody wants that tender, juicy steak, right? They don't want to bite into like a rough, I've got to like chew this 100 times before I can
Yeah.
swallow it. So I want to just for our audience who has some familiarity with kind of the whole histamine processing thing, I'm just going to like elaborate on this a little bit. So
Yeah.
as meat is aging, there are microbes. I know we've talked about like soil microbes, we've talked about microbes in the cow's gut, right? Microbes are everywhere. Okay, I'm going to totally do something stupid here, but are you guys familiar with Madonna's song Material World? Craig, you might not be like, so
Nope.
Luke is nodding. So I have my own lyrics. So the
Okay.
song goes, we are living in a material world, but my lyrics go, we are living in a microbial world, and
Yeah.
I am a microbial girl because we
Nice.
really are, right? Like we're
Yeah.
living in this world that is dominated, like, sorry, people, we are not the dominant species. It's dominated by microbes. So normally when beef is butchered, there's these microbes. Again, they're everywhere on beef as well. And it's an enzyme that the microbes produce called decarboxylase. And so it's the decarboxylase that takes histidine, which is an amino acid naturally occurring in beef, and converts it to histamine. So this is why aging is so problematic for people who have histamine or mast cell issues is because of this conversion of histidine to histamine that happens through this aging process. So just to lend a little bit of clarity to that. So now you're saying the brand, what is it? Piedmont? Say that again.
Piedmontese is a breed of cattle. Yeah.
Piedmontese. Okay, so
Yeah.
Piedmontese is naturally tender, so now does not require this whole aging process.
Yeah.
And having enjoyed it in my own kitchen, I can attest to its tenderness. So I think that's really ultimately, obviously, we've got the regenerative piece, which, as we have seen, is just so vitally, vitally important. But now this is what makes your beef from a histamine perspective just so distinctly different from other regenerative farmers. Am I like getting that correct?
Yep. Yeah. And like you can probably find people that would sell you meat that's not aged, and you would have some good experiences with the tenderness of it and some not as good experiences with the tenderness of it because there is so much variability. Because there's no other breeds yet that have found that consistent gene or set of genes to always have that tenderness factor. So it is possible to get it without having the Piedmontese breed, but the Piedmontese breed just makes it so much nicer and easier.
Good, 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 good to know. Now, I know you talked a little bit about the difference between like the fresh beef, which is transported. What with so okay, let me just backtrack here a little bit. So I've placed an order through you, and I'm about to place another one in a couple of days. And so you delivered that to my front door, completely frozen. What is the sort of the processing time from slaughter to like that actual freezing and packaging? What does that look like?
Yeah, we try to have it all processed and frozen within that week. So it depends on like how much the butcher's got in his cutting and freezing, but because we're not aging it, it's right at the front. He's just as soon as he can get to it, he processes it, and then yeah, for the most part, we can get him to do it within that first week and have it all done and frozen. So
And is the butcher doing that freezing as well?
yeah, yeah,
So then you're
that's
picking.
all done at the butcher, and then we go pick it up and distribute it however we need to. Yeah.
Yep, yep, good, good. Okay. So next question I have for you is, so now we understand sort of this unique, distinct difference from this histamine perspective, but can you maybe share some customer feedback sort of about this idea of like, you've touched on a little bit, but tolerability, like how people do with your beef versus other beef?
Yeah, so we're getting more and more customers now that are coming to us because they can't eat beef, and they hear from either another customer or from you guys or whoever we've got out there that is using our beef, and they're coming to us and they're saying, "Hey, like I've never been able to eat beef before, and I can handle this and not have a problem." And it's super amazing. I love all those stories, and like we've had people with like even heart conditions that they would be aggravated by beef, or histamine, lots of histamine issues that would be aggravated by beef, that now they've switched our beef and they're just loving it. So
Awesome. Yeah.
it's pretty amazing. So
Well, and the heart piece is actually super interesting because the heart has a ton of histamine receptors
okay.
on it. So, yeah, I'm sure that's the link.
Yeah, yeah, cool.
So, I know Luca had shared, was asking like what were some of the key questions. Luca, do you want to maybe pop that checklist up again? And we can sort of take a look now specifically at these like histamine based questions. So, what should our people be if they're going, maybe they live somewhere completely different, they can't access your beef? What is it they're going to be asking from their farmer?
Yeah, the big one is how long is the carcass hanging at the butcher? So that's where if they're aging it for 21 days, it's going to be a lot more of a trigger than if it's been within the first week. Um, and then the other one is how long has that beef been sitting in a package before it was frozen? So some butchers will, after it's been on the counter for a certain amount of time, if it doesn't sell, then they'll freeze it and sell it that way. So in a situation like that, you'll have had that histamine buildup when it was sitting on the counter before it gets frozen. So the ideal is, of course, to as soon as possible to have it cut and frozen. So
Perfect. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because Luca and I talk about that quite a bit. Like if you're a consumer, you go into a grocery store, like we always talk about getting frozen meat, but with the exception of like if you go to the grocery store, if something is in the freezer, it's probably already hit that best before date. And then they move it in the freezer. So, obviously they can still sell it, but from a histamine perspective, that means it was sitting out on the counter and then it hit that best before date and they didn't want it to perish, so they put it in the freezer. So that's really important to
yeah, so
understand.
from a food safety standpoint, it's still all good, but from a
Yes,
histamine
but
standpoint,
yeah.
it's
So Craig, I'm sure again our histamine people are going to be super excited about this. Now, for you specifically, how do people order your meat and maybe like how big is your delivery area?
yeah. So if people are just interested in learning more about what we're doing, we have a newsletter that we put out every week. Um, and that, as well as our online store, is at peonyfarms.com, which is our website. And we deliver anywhere from the north end of Edmonton area, like St. Albert area, down to like Okotoks, south end of Calgary area, and all along that Highway 2 corridor is what our hand delivery is at this point. So,
Okay, so
and
for
then
anybody who's watching who's maybe not in Alberta,
yeah.
this is like sort of central Alberta. Have you ever shipped elsewhere for people?
So our processing is provincially inspected, so we can't ship out of province. But we have had people from further away come and pick up beef from us or that type of thing. So yeah.
Okay, okay. So for people again who are maybe outside of Alberta and are looking for low histamine beef, how important do you think breed is in this whole picture? Like, is that something they should be asking their farmer?
Um, so breed isn't super critical if they're not picky on what the eating experience is going to be like. So you can have low histamine beef, any breed, not aged, with all these regenerative components. And then it's just your risk is you might sometimes have a really good eating experience. Sometimes you'll be a little bit upset about it, but it's yeah, it's kind of up to what their standards are for an enjoyable eating experience.
Yeah, no, I get that because I have heard like, oh, I went to my local farmer, ordered, this like unhung, unaged beef, and it was completely inedible. So like we don't want that to happen to people. So okay, so then that is obviously most people, food is such a it's so much, I think, of what brings people comfort.
Mhm.
So that edibility piece, obviously, for most people is going to be like
Yeah.
the biggest factor
Yeah.
that they're looking for. So again, say I'm in the southern states or anywhere else in the world, then breed is going to be obviously first and foremost. Hang time, we want to actually just eliminate that completely, right?
Yeah. Yeah. As much
Yeah,
as possible.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay, so hopefully people now have this like picture of what the potential is, right? The like you're the epitome of I think the best we have to offer in the world of farming, right? You care about the soil, you care about the plants, you care about your animals, and then obviously that all impacts human health. And you have a very personal reason for doing this. And I mean, I just love talking to farmers like you because it's so inspirational. To find people that are coming back to the connection with the land in this really, really intimate way. And when we're looking at our own health, like that's a big part of it too, is the just connection to nature. So this is one way that we can help to foster that type of connection. So I'm super, super happy that you were able to join us today and that people now have some incredible strategies to move forward because beef is incredibly nutrient dense. And so it's this phenomenal food that we want to bring in. So Luca and I, we've got 3 stages in our protocol. So beef actually it comes in like big cuts in stage 2, and then in stage 3, some of the, like a ground beef, for example. But this beef you can bring in at stage 1, people. So, right, this is fresh, no histamine, no aging. So this is just phenomenal. So having said all of that, I hope we've been able to enlighten people and educate them about what is available out there and specifically about what Peony Farms is doing. So we'd like to open up things for questions now. Luca, do you want to take that over?
Yeah, I'm going to start with a very obvious question. For somebody who wants to buy, like when you're buying animal or part of an animal, because I'm assuming you can buy an entire cow when you contact the farmer, how do you sell it? And if somebody wants to try it first before they get into buying a whole thing just to trial it, what would you recommend?
Yeah, so we do work with like in Calgary and in St. Albert, retailer Amaranth Whole Foods, and they'll carry some specific single cuts for if someone just wants to try one thing. Our smallest package we sell is a 10-pound just sampler pack on our online store. So people that just want to try a mix of a bunch of different things, that's there. Um, and so, yeah, talking to farmers, some are willing to sell for less than a quarter. Some don't want to sell anything less than a half. So it's also a conversation to have with the specific farmers that you're dealing with. So
What do you guys do at Peony Farms?
the smallest package is a 10-pounder.
Okay.
So yeah,
And if
just
somebody wants to buy a quarter, they could. If somebody wants to buy
yeah,
half, they could.
yeah.
And have
We
you
go
ever, oh, sorry, go
10
ahead.
pound, eight, quarter, half, whole.
Okay. And for a family of 4, for example, and if you were eating beef once or twice a week, how long would that last you if you're buying, like, what would a family of 4 want to buy for a year's worth of food?
It's so hard to say because so
Mm.
many different people have such different levels of meat consumption. Like carnivores, they're eating like probably an eighth of a beef a month.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of all
So
over the
can
place.
I should preface all of that. Like, I think people need to also understand when you're getting frozen meat, you need the freezer space,
Yeah.
right? This is vitally important. If you do not have a deep freeze in your home, you obviously need to buy smaller quantities. I have met people who have purchased multiple big deep freezes, right? To be able to do these bigger purchases. I'm just about to move and I'm super excited. In our new home, we're getting a stand up freezer. I'm so sick of digging like into a big chest freezer. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going to have all my beef on one shelf and my pork on another shelf. But this is something people need to know, right? Like, I can't bring home all of this frozen beef if I don't have the freezer space, obviously.
And I guess the other part to that comment is so the optimum nutrition of the beef will be midsummer to late fall, is because you've got the sunlight factor, you've got the fresh growing forages factor. So if you want the optimum beef, then you want to get it then store it year round in the freezer. in the winter, ours is still, or forage finished beef in general, is still gonna be way better than grain finished. So like we'll have people that they don't want to get another freezer, they'll do the 10-pound pack every whatever couple weeks or month and do it that way. But for people that are wanting to hit that optimum peak from vitamin D from sun and from green growing grass, those extra little things, then it's yeah, get it in the late summer, fall and store it for a
Okay,
long time.
so Craig, it is September 26th today.
Yep.
How much of that optimal window is still left?
Oh, probably like we'll be grazing green plants yet for another probably close to a month.
Okay, I
So
got to remember to get my order in this week.
That's a great concept. So just to give an idea for people, if you're new to purchasing in bulk, meat in bulk, I've usually done a quarter animal once a year, and there's three of us, and we were having beef at least twice a week, if not three
yep.
times a week. We eat a lot of beef at our house, and that seemed to do us well. Now, on that note, I have a question for you. I love
Mhm.
this. You're mentioning vitamin D. P.S. The fat from these animals, when purchased at this time of year, will be very rich in vitamin D, which is a mast cell stabilizer. So you could put that in the story as well, that you're telling people like this is also for that extra reason, yet another perfect window of time to maximize the nutrient density in order to help nourish a body that might be struggling through histamine and mast cell things. We do have a question. We have a couple of questions from those who are here in attendance. Why is beef aged, whereas pork, poultry, and fish are not? Do you age your beef? We've answered that already. And if you do age your beef, how does that affect the histamine levels? We've touched on that. So just that first part. Why is beef aged and pork, poultry, fish are not?
Yeah, so we have a lady nearby that's doing grass finished lamb. And so I was kind of talking to her about it. And from my understanding, the reason they don't age lamb is because it'll create kind of off flavors and stuff in the meat that, like with beef, they say you get more other like beneficial flavors, whereas I think some of those other ones you get some off flavors and the eating experience isn't as good as why they don't age those. Plus, I think beef is supposed to be a little more tough from like the amount of muscle they're carrying around, having to travel and some of that stuff, working those muscles can be a toughening factor. So,
Yeah, of course. Okay. Another question. When you're ordering a quarter of a cow or an eighth or a half, and if you wanted to also get the fat or the bones or any of the organ meats, is that an add-on thing? Is that something that people should do? Is there other stuff that they could ask for? What can you offer as advice there?
yeah, so organ meats we usually sell as an add-on because we have such a high demand for it. We kind of have to keep keep making sure we if we have something it's going where it needs to go, and so then we use that as another product that we're selling. We usually if people buy halves or wholes, we let full customization. They can have it cut however they want. Bones we throw in if people are interested. We've had some people request things like tongue. Like so pretty much anything in the animal you can get if you ask us. And we do some like for people with really severe histamines, we've done some like custom bundles of just steaks because they're concerned about the ground beef or the roasts. So some people like that will customize a just steak bundle or whatever they need to make sure that they're taken care of. So
As a French Canadian, I would dearly love so many, like the lights, as they call them, lungs and I don't know so much about the prairie oysters, but there's a lot of traditional foods, for when histamine is not an issue. A lot of traditional foods would have been using tip to tail, right? You would prioritize and you would use everything from tip to tail. Yeah. So I'd be very happy. Can the histamine havens, I think she means us, tell us how to cook beef from frozen to fully cooked?
Yes, it's in our cookbook. So in our cookbook, we actually have a chart with different meats, different cuts, how long it takes in an instant pot to do that. So that is available in our cookbook. Yeah. I
Fantastic. We
just
also,
I I just did a roast yesterday from frozen in my Instant Pot. It was a big one, a full 2 hours
Mm.
it took in there. But yes, that is all outlined in our cookbook. Great question.
I will add to that at the end, because in an Instant Pot or pressure cooker, you're using some liquid in there and you're cooking the meat in, you're making a meat stock, friends. So whatever juice is left at the end is a part of what actually does the gut repair so that you can better make some of that DAO enzyme to break down your histamine coming in through your food. So when we do gut mending, we're stabilizing more of those mast cells. So consume the liquid that you will have used in the meat products. If you're using a low histamine beef, your meat stock will be low histamine as well. It depends on cooking time. I have some clients that will not tolerate anything past 30 minutes cooking time. So it's something, again, to try and to trial out. Yeah.
Yep. I just want to, before I forget to mention, because I purchased this from your farm, Craig, is you sell tallow
Mm-hmm.
as well. So I love to use tallow. I whip it and use it as a hand and a foot cream. So it's like a one ingredient, right? So for people who are sensitive to like ingredients and products, this is one of the most brilliant things you can use.
It's my face cream. I brought Alberta with me here to the Netherlands, and I
Nice.
use actually tallow-based face cream, and it's my favorite thing. I miss it. I miss it. Having access to it. Well, I think that about wraps up our hour. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? Is there anything we didn't hit that you were hoping to talk about, Craig?
Nope, I think that's it.
Okay.
Okay, Craig, why don't you remind everybody where they can find you and where they can order your beef from?
Yeah, so peonyfarms.com is our website. You can go there for beef or for just getting our newsletter, learning more about how all the nitty-gritty in the back end of the farm works and how that translates into this beef. And Amaranth Whole Foods is a retailer. Flat Cap Butchers in Calgary is a retailer, but they won't have any frozen stuff. Um, yeah, and I'm always excited to talk to people that are interested in this type of thing. And for people that are outside Alberta, if they have farmers that are interested in making this stuff happen, I'm happy to talk to them too. So
I was totally going to ask you that question. So I'm thinking, somebody who's in, I don't know, New Orleans, if they want to find a local farmer that's doing something like this, or they are like, is there a network or any kind where there are farmers that are talking to each other? Is there anywhere they could find maybe some of this information?
there is a little bit of a network of regenerative farmers, but I don't have a lot of contacts for farmers that are like focused on the health and nutrition aspect of their beef. So, but if other people find them, I'm happy to talk to them.
Okay, cool. There is one big company, I think is it North, well, it's a bison producer.
Hmm.
And I can't I won't say who they are because I haven't talked to them and I can't confirm and I don't want to send anybody in the wrong direction. But there is somebody who actually advertises that it is low histamine. Their products are low histamine.
Yeah,
So
I've seen their website before, the bison guys.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool. I really think we live in an amazing time where there's a lot of this information coming up to the surface. And I think so much of it comes from people doggedly searching for answers and asking the right questions. So we're really grateful to you today for helping us learn what are those questions we can ask so that, like I just think the regenerative aspect is there's the grass, there's the animals, there's the people, there's the connections, but you've just added another level to it by sharing what you've got here with us today. So we're really, really grateful to you for taking some time out of a day where you're having to deal with balers. And the day-to-day of running a farm is no small feat at a very busy time, I'm sure busy season. So we're quite grateful to you for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm happy to share all these things and hope that makes a difference for people. So
Well, thanks everybody who's joined us. We look forward to crossing paths with you down the road. If you have any questions, please use the links below. We're going to post them wherever this video is going to be hosted. And you can also put comments down below and we'll connect you with whatever it is you're looking for to make sure that you're getting the solutions and the answers to help address what it is you've got going on. Thanks, everybody.